Hey guys, it's me in the necklace you've seen me wear over 100 million times, here for another Keeper Tucks with Kiki. Okay, today we're going to be talking about manatees. I love them so much. Now, through my research for this episode, I have decided I will work with manatees. I want to help these little fellas. They're adorable. They're so cute, and they get hit by boats all the time, and they need some help. So I've decided I'm going to do that at some point. Not today, another time. Anyway, let's talk about your questions. Now, first of all, a couple people asked, what do they eat? They like to eat lots of vegetation. So they eat marine vegetation. They'll eat turtle grass, shoal grass, manatee grass, all the grass, any grass they can find. They're known for living in seagrass beds where they can find their food. They're gonna eat over 100 pounds of food in a day normally. This is an animal that weighs around 12,000 pounds normally. It's a big fella. So they need a lot of grass to eat. Now, when they're in these areas that they live, so they like to live in estuaries, they like to live in seagrass areas, they like to live in kind of like a saltwater, freshwater mix, but they can do well in both water types. The main thing with the water though is that they like to have it over 60 degrees. So if it's under 60 degrees, they can actually get shock from being too cold. So they're gonna kind of stay around in the waterways that are warmer so that they can stay nice and warm. Manatees are gonna help really eat all the seagrass, and that seagrass is essential for fish to grow up in. So when fish lay their eggs, they like to lay their eggs around the seagrass, and the young fish, the fish fry, they grow up in that seagrass. So they need a good amount of it to grow up in, but it can't grow too much because that's bad for the ecosystem, and there can't be too little of it because then the fish don't have a safe place to grow and they just get eaten up by predators before they can mature. So the manatees are actually a really, really good indicator of the ecosystem that they're in, of how healthy it is. So if the manatees are healthy, then you know your ecosystem is pretty balanced and doing well. But if the manatees start being unhealthy and start struggling, then you know that the ecosystem is struggling along with them. Now, somebody asked, how long do they take to heal from boat injuries? It really depends on the boat injury. So if they get cut on the side of their body, it's more of a superficial wound. They can heal from that in the water. But if that boat injury causes internal injuries or a really, really deep cut, they could potentially die from it. So really depends on the manatee, how old they are, how deep the cut is, where the cut is. But the boat collisions are a main killer of manatees in Florida. Now, these guys used to be on the endangered species list, but now they're only listed as vulnerable. And a huge reason for that is the boat restrictions that have been placed through areas that are called manatee zones. So if an area in Florida is known as a popular manatee spot, then it will get marked off and there will be signs that say, hey, it's a manatee zone. You need to drive way slower, because manatees move at an average speed of 3 to 5 miles per hour. Not fast animals at all. This is enforced by local authorities. They make sure that the boats are slowing down so that they can see a manatee, avoid a manatee, and so that the propellers aren't going super fast, so they won't hit the manatee. That has caused a huge change with manatee numbers. They live, when they're not interrupted, 40 to 60 years long, so they have a really nice long lifespan. And they will sleep for about 12 hours a day. So they really get their sleep in, but they're interesting because they're like dolphins, where they don't actually fully go to sleep, and that's because they're underwater, but they still require coming up for air. They don't have gills like fish, they're mammals. So they have to surface every now and then, most of the time every couple minutes, but they can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes. But when they're surfacing, if they're asleep, then they won't be able to do that. So half of their brain goes to sleep, just like a dolphin, and then the other half stays awake to make sure that they're still surfacing to get air. They do have arms that are kind of funny looking. They are called flippers. And a fun fact about them is that they actually nurse their babies from in their armpit. So the nipple is like right where their forearm attaches to their body, and they nurse from right there, which is so weird. So if you ever see a picture, or if you're ever lucky enough to see these gorgeous animals in the wild, and you see a little baby with its head tucked under the mom's flipper, it's actually nursing from her. And the babies will stay with their mom and nurse for 2 whole years before going off on their own. They may eat a little bit of grass along that time, but they're staying with their mom. And the mom will only have a calf every 2 to 5 years. So that's another reason that it's so important that we protect these animals, because They're not like rabbits where they're breeding like crazy and they can really replace themselves once they're knocked out of an ecosystem. They have a very, very slow recovery time. So I'm so thankful that they're not on the endangered species list anymore, but we do have to keep protecting them now. So thank you so much for tuning in for Keep Your Talks with Kiki, and stay tuned for Friday's Fact Friday posts. I hope you're enjoying all these videos. Make sure to share them with your friends if you did.